Thank you, Internet peoples, all our fans, Netrunner players. Why? I need to script out the opening. Guys, what I want to say is that Bad Publicity is brought to you by our Patreon subscribers who generously donate their incomes to help fund this and help us out with some audio costs and some little things that keep this little ship afloat and pointed in the right direction. Our Patreon is tucked over there, as always. So if you want to check it out, please do. Tonight, myself, Jameson, Hollis, and Corey, we're going to break down the kind of current state of the meta, state of the game, a little what we're seeing at the end in the top cut from Worlds going into now. Store Champs, and Store Champs have kicked off. Hollis is you cut and paste this probably everywhere, right? Get the feeds out, do your little dance. We'll throw it over to Corey, who's gonna fill us in on some new details about this Store Champ season here.
Yeah, so everyone's getting excited and gearing up. Worlds Ascended, which I'm sure you guys are gonna touch base on in just a little bit. And it's like the next competitive step for Netrunner. So next
it's like
year,
the step down, right? Restart.
That's right. It's just like, hey, we could split this up now. So next year, FFG is separating kind of like the Star Wars from their other games. So good news is there should be more space at Worlds, and also means the seasons are all in random places. So Store Champs now are starting a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and running to, I believe it's like the beginning of March.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, sounds right. So, hey, holiday season is the best time to play a Store Champ. And but you can get those data packs on your wish list. Load up, get ready. But it's cool. So it means that they're just going to space out a little bit, and you're coming right off Worlds and Store Champs, so the competitive bug just keeps on rolling. So some cool stuff. If you haven't checked out the prize kit for Store Champs, it is sweet. So they're doing, yeah. What's that? What's that word again?
It's so sweet.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
sweet.
Yeah. It's if I recall, I think it's like pad campaigns. Is that right?
That's what I heard too.
Yes.
They went back to cool looking plaques. They had that year off where it was just like the wood with the black frame that anyone could have got made anywhere. So actually putting like cool artwork and stuff on it. They use is it Run Amok? I think it's the Run Amok artwork.
You are correct again.
Yes. And then they're doing like the Fem tokens, which is really cool looking because it's got the artwork on it. It's a really beautiful kit. Like FFG did an amazing job on it. And it's something that if you haven't checked out, look at it and then get hyped on your Store Champ. So, and some people, like if you live in the Atlanta area, you've got like a Store Champ every other week because there's like 10 stores around here hosting them. We're spoiled sometimes. Sorry, other metas. I'm sorry. But yeah, and it's a great way for you to support your local gaming store. Sorry, I had to throw that in. Support your local gaming store. All right. That's me. So why don't you guys talk about some of the stuff you saw at Worlds that you feel like is going to spill over into Store Champ season?
Well, I personally, I mean,
I know it was filled with variety. So hopefully got enough time for you to go through all the different types of decks you saw there.
super diverse meta. No, I mean, I'll jump right in. At Worlds, it was pretty clear that like the Corp to beat was pretty much anything in yellow, primarily CTM and Sync. And you know, we've talked about this before at pretty great length, but just to reiterate for those who haven't seen other videos, it's the combination of a lot of the cards in NBN. Cards like Exchange of Information, cards like Psychographics, Hard-Hitting News, Closed Accounts, Breaking News. All of those cards.
What about Boom?
Well, and yeah, heck yeah, even boom.
Because
Boom,
that's
right?
pretty much in MBN these days, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
an NBA card as far as we're concerned, right?
Yeah.
All those cards work really well together in tandem, and they create really bad scenarios for the runner to be in, where if you're too aggressive, you're losing. If you're not aggressive enough, you're losing. Combine that with fast advanced tools, MBN is just a pretty strong faction to begin with. So going into Worlds, it was not surprising at all to see, the majority of the top 16 heavily dominated. In fact, you guys recall how many of the top 16 were MBN at Worlds?
I can only count to 15.
I don't know.
It was a straight flush. It was a straight flush across the board. All 16 were yellow.
Was it?
Yeah, all 16 were yellow. There was not a single deck in the top 16 that was not yellow. If you want to expand that even further, if you want to look at it comparatively, out of the top 20 decks, 19 were yellow. You can keep that going even further if you want. Out of the top 32 decks, something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out of the top 32 decks, 26 were yellow. So it's pretty clear that the faction is incredibly powerful. You start seeing a lot of breaking that down further, you actually start to see a lot of diversity, but that diversity comes after you stop looking at maybe like the top 60 or so. When you sort of remove the top 60 decks that were played at Worlds, that's when you start seeing, the occasional, HB decks. That's when you start seeing some maybe a Wayland deck or some of the interesting splash, or an ID that we see fairly underrepresented all the time, like maybe a Blue Sun,
Maybe a Jinteki.
or maybe a Jinteki. Maybe you'll see a Palena somewhere in there.
Maybe.
And
Or go check out that PE deck that's sweeping the nation.
Yeah, man. It's a pretty sweet PE deck.
Yeah. Check it out on Netrunner DB. Up. It's like, what did I call it? Up, down, left, right, right. Start, select. Konami shout out.
Basically what it comes down to is that. Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing it for the fans.
Oh, the stretch.
I'm doing it for the fans.
Man of the people.
They see the whole shirt. But yeah, no, in short, it was very heavily dominated by MBN. I mean, when you're looking at basically the top 3/4 of the top 32, top 64, top 100 even are MBN. It kind of puts the game into in perspective as far as what the masses are thinking about what's good. And I understand that there's room to argue that maybe there's like a group think involved, and people kind of have like their favorite decks, or they see what's doing well and they don't want to innovate. But I think that when you have 3/4 of the meta playing something, I don't think it's all that group think that we talk about, that we are worried about. I think that when you see 3/4 of a community playing a very specific deck, in the same way how if you were playing Overwatch or Counter-Strike, if 3/4 of competitive players are playing a certain team build or matchup, it's not just because they're bored and they're unoriginal. Chances are these guys have played all the decks or a fair amount of them, and they've determined this is the best setup, or one of the best decks, one of the best setups in this case. And so yeah, there's that. And our episode today is really just to give you the information so that you can make your own decision going into Sword Champ season.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell anybody they should or should not be playing NBN, but we're going to talk about it a little bit.
Let's stay on this clean sweep here. Hollis, do you want to talk about the runner side too? You got those stats handy? I know you're our statistical guy. You have to check with your people in the booth. Get those numbers called in.
He's got his shirt ready to monitor his Thaco.
Hold on one second. Doing the numbers.
Yeah.
No. All right. So looking at World's top 16, just top 16 now. 14. That's a lot. 14 out of the 16 players were playing some form of Anarch. This was a combination of Wizard, Valencia, and FMX. I don't believe. Yeah, that was it. Valencia, Wizard of X. And again, if we were to dig sort of deeper and we look at the top even 32, out of the top 32, hold on one second, getting the numbers from my team. I want to say there were only 5 other decks that were played in top 32 that weren't Anarch. I could keep going further, but just as a quick glance, here's a spoiler alert. If I go to top 64, I think I'm at most 12 decks. So, at most 12 decks. I mean, I think I actually landed at around maybe 10.
You could count.
Yeah, that's rough. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Like it's basically 10 and 12 decks out of the top 64 that weren't orange, that were not NR, and that says a lot about the game. And it's again, same thing I said about yellow. I don't think we're at a groupthink mentality. I think we're at a point where it's pretty clear which decks and which archetypes are very powerful. Have a lot of momentum going for them. Have an econ engine. Have a breaker suite that works really well, and they have a plan.
Yeah.
They're not decks that are very Timmy or Johnny focused. They're very competitive.
I think that's exactly hit the nail on the head. I don't think we're talking about people sitting in pockets or the group think mentality here. I think we're really looking at people that tried a whole bunch of decks and said, you know what? Nothing can really top the state of NBN. Nothing can really top how powerful and destructive the tools in Anarch are right now.
Right.
There was a couple people that I talked to said that they ran the gauntlet and they really didn't want to play controlling the message, but at the end of the day, they could not find anything that was better. Corey, when you look at that from somebody that wasn't there, what does that say to you? Well, what's your thoughts on this situation where we're dealing with what do you want to call it, an orange and yellow world?
Yeah. Well, I guess first, I don't know. Doesn't seem like the watch list is stopping it enough to keep those powerful decks from still being great. Yeah. Or maybe it's just that once they put a bunch of these strong cards on the watch list, they then release something that it doesn't matter that you put these other cards on the list, because then you just released a tool that's good with what's not on the list, that it puts it right back on the pedestal again where it's amazing. So, I mean, that's stuff to think about, I guess, if you're a designer and you're trying to tone some of this stuff down or rein it in, what to do to kind of rebalance the field. And I guess it also means that, again, you're rolling in the store champ season, you need to consider this. I mean, I know a lot of people want to try to play some different stuff, but when you see results like that, how well those decks do, you have to take notice. Also, I'm not shocked at all that NBN did so well.
Yeah.
It's again, if you've listened to any of our breakdown episodes where we've gone over top 10s and how consistent they've had cards in the top 3 spots in almost every category of card, it should come as no surprise that Corp did amazingly well at Worlds this year.
Do you think that is there a point, like, is the big box kind of what pushed them over the limit? I mean, NBN, like, all the time, the last couple Worlds, everyone's like, NBN could win Worlds, NBN could win Worlds, and it never did until now.
It's true.
Like,
it's true.
So, are we looking at that point of the game's timeline when things really change for them? Like, or was it controlling the message? Was it that ID specifically that pushed it over? Because there was some sync out there.
Yeah, but I think maybe we touched on this a little bit. I think a lot of people kind of chimed in that I think it was like exchange between like breaking the news, CTM. There's just a lot of these combos that then started formulating that built into where it got back almost to that butcher shop style of play, where now you don't have to build a deck that's focused on just one game plan. you can now play a deck with various game plans that can react based on how the game's going. And when you can play a deck with options, those are strong. Because your opponent doesn't have just one way to shut you down and win the game. They don't have like that one plan that they know they'll get them there. If they make a mistake in various options, you have a different path to victory.
Yeah, there's nothing more deadly than a multi-win condition card deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and especially if that card deck is versatile enough that it can pivot and change its win condition when it needs to. Not like at the beginning of the game I have to decide. It's like, oh, it's turn 7 or 8 and I'm not winning this way. I can still make an adjustment, change up my focus, and pull a win out here.
Yeah, and if you guys never played during the era of Butcher Shop, those were some of like the most nerve-wracking games as the runner, because not every deck was playing that way, but it was always like the first couple turns was just like, are they on kill? Or are they just trying to fast advance? And it was always like if you guessed wrong, you were just done. Even if you're just like, I think they're on kill, I'm going to play conservative. And then they just like Astro Chain right out. And you're just like, okay, I guess I wasn't aggressive enough. And the next game it's like, I'm going to be aggressive. And then you just explode. You're like, okay, I don't know. So yeah.
So does this deter you at all? I spoke with some people and they've kind of thrown their hands up now, and they say that they're going to take a back seat to this game because of pretty much the wash, the color wash that we're seeing at the moment. So
yeah.
You know, your thoughts, and then transition over to Hollis. I'll let you kind of finish up.
Yeah. So I feel like this game always kind of hits those little time frames where you'll have like a certain ID or a certain group that's like overwhelming. But as we'll touch on a little later, some things that is, positive is that you'll see players who have actually done really well or won some of the earlier store champs with things outside of the mold. And, you have to ask yourself, like, is that because, there's other good decks out there that you can play, and so these people who just were determined to try something different, or maybe there was just enough players at that event that was just like, hey, we're not going to play these same old decks, we're going to play other stuff. And so you're able to go and you don't just play CTM 6 rounds in a row, or you don't just play Anarch 6 rounds in a row. And as more Flashpoint comes out, Wayland's getting more cards that are actually, from the spoilers, appear to be pretty damn good. And so, they may finally get their legs and start seeing more and more play and doing really well. So there's hope. I think we might turn a corner and start seeing some variety start creeping its way back in.
Hollis,
and now Hollis is going to smash all that to bits.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So here's I guess my perspective is going to be a little different, and like I sort of have like these rose-tinted glasses towards the game, and that's because I'm deep into the community, right? Like my talons are in, and so I'm gonna play this game and like be and be a supportive member of the community and of the game, regardless of the positives or negative in the meta. Like basically, I've stated before, I'm ride or die, and it's only because I love the game and I love the people that play the game so much that I'm gonna stick around. Now, if I was a newer player and I was jumping into the game, and I was able to see the current meta as it is, I would be hugely turned off from playing. Because I would look at the meta and I would go, okay, I have to play. I have no choice. I feel like I must play these two factions to play the game in a tournament and do well. Now, I know that there's room to argue, hey, there's people right now that, for example, someone just won a sword champ playing an IG deck. People have won sword champs playing a smoke deck. So it's one of those scenarios where, yes, you can play something different and have fun. That's fine. But there's a mentality that you have to have for that. you have to go into it saying to yourself, I'm not going to play these known to be good things. I'm going to play my thing. And even if I don't do as well as often, I'm content with that because I'm having more fun in the game that way. If we look back to before we had such a large card pool, and really, I'm being honest here, the card pool isn't that large, but if you look back before this card pool was the current size it is now, I think a lack of options made the race to see who was better a little closer. You can play criminal, but I mean, prepaid Kate's really good. Yeah, but I mean, Max DLR Max is really good, and so you had this sort of this weird triangle effect that you see all the time, where this deck beats this deck beats this deck beats this. I think that there's still some triangle elements like that. This rock paper scissors element in Netrunner, but I think that for example, if Enarch and NBN were rock, that rock is huge. Like that rock is not like
boulder.
Yeah, boulder. It's paper, scissors, boulder is what you're looking at. Because it feels like even if you're playing a deck to meta those things, they can still win. Like it's not an impossible sort of feat. It's still within their reach. And I think that if you were to look at other factions, if you were to tech against another archetype that wasn't like a tax or maybe in deck in the way we've seen, or the existing like Dumblefork, if you go back to it, if you tech against those decks, they're going to do really well. If I was playing HB fast events though, or some other like weird glacier build, it's much easier to tech against. So like the few techs that you put in the deck go a lot further, whereas when you play those other archetypes that are really successful, more often they are less hurt by those hard tech cards. That, and in general, putting a lot of tech cards, forcing your opponent to put a lot of tech cards in their deck, generally reduces the power level of that deck versus other threats, right? So there's sort of this other counterbalance to it. Yeah, you're going to be teched really hard against me, but let's say you play against someone that isn't me, that isn't my archetype, you're going to do a little worse, which is exactly what I need. I need you to do a little worse so I don't see you in the Swiss or what have you. So that's how I feel. I feel like newer players actually would get very turned off by the current game.
And, just to clarify, I think when we mean we're seeing the same deck, we're talking about a deck shell. So what I mean is if you're allowed to have 45 cards minimum in a deck, and let's just say that's the number that you're aiming for, or for a corp like the 49 or whatever, we're talking about out of 45. An exact match to something else, you're looking at 40 cards are almost the same, right? I'm not talking, about the argument of, well, this deck here is different than me because it runs 2 parasites, I only run 1. Or, I run 3 parasites, these people run 2. Or I went data sucker, or I sub this out. You're using this, we're talking about the same shell of a deck. The same ID and then more than half the cards. I think that, Hollis, you brought up a very interesting point, because when I saw the decks develop a couple years ago, I think there was more. It was strange, because I always believed that when as the farther we get along, and we're getting into the range now that we will have the most cards in the game that it will ever have before 2 cycles drop out, and then we have to rebuild up again, and then the elevator drops and we rebuild up again. So I thought when we were at this point that there would be a very heavy amount of diversity. Yeah. I thought once the card pool gets bigger, but that's not happening. But I don't know if we can tie that back to the fact that is this what a living card game is? Because everybody has the same cards, right? Do we see more diversity in collectible games because the same cards aren't available to everybody? So people have to make good decks and good combo decks from what they have available to them or what's in their budget. From gathering in the what do they call it? The secondary market, right? But if I have the same cards as you two guys, and Corey, just say you win a store championship or something, or we'll use that as an example, and then Hollis, you win a store championship in your regional. Why wouldn't I just be like, oh, can I get your deck list? I have all these cards available to me. There we go.
Yeah.
Turns out I also own those cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I could also build that deck.
So do you guys think that that's just how our game is always going to be then? Is that the cards are going to be evaluated and the cream will always rise to the top, and there's going to be cards. Yeah. I thought about that while I was saying it. And, is that just what we're in? And no matter how big the card pool is, when someone finds that right combination lock, it's just going to spread like wildfire.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think you're right. The living card game is going to adapt and adjust, and I guess the idea is as a data pack's released, the meta shifts supposedly, and the player base is there to find out like what the hotness is and what's good based on these packs. I think where some of the issue can come on is, of course, like the not super competitive player, or the fact that you also create this world that has this amazing theme where players will jump into the game, they're attracted to the game because of a character they see, or some of the images, and you're like, I want to play those, and then they come in and then they find out that like their favorite corp is like the bottom of the bin, or they see one of these runners, like this runner looks really cool, and then they come in and find out that like this faction hasn't been doing well for like a year and a half. And that's where you can get an issue, is because the game does such a good job of creating these really inspiring and amazing pieces of artwork and characters that you get attached to, and that you want to play with those cards. You want to play this faction, and you want to play this corporation with this as their game plan. And then when you come out and you just see one like dominate so much, and that's not something that you are into, it can be a little difficult because you want to play what you like.
Hollis, do you have anything to throw into that too?
Yeah, I have to, just taking from something that you mentioned. I don't think that the lack of a secondary market prevents people from. I don't think it makes it necessarily more common per se, because in my head I think you're only really going to make the effort to if you're gonna copy a deck, and you're never going to make your own. You're going to primarily stick with things people have already tried and tested.
Yeah, but I also don't want to get into the net deck argument. That wasn't my intention.
Yeah.
Right. So just to throw that out there first.
Oh no! Basically, what I'm saying is that, like, in short, whether or not there's a secondary market or not. For example, if I really want to be competitive, even if you tell me the deck costs $400, right, to buy the necessary cards, I'm gonna do an evaluation in my head, and I'm gonna go, all right, if I can afford this, I'm gonna build it. We see this in Magic, we see this in Pokemon, we see this in Yu-Gi-Oh, we see this in horrible games like Force of Will. Like people will do this. People will.
Hold on a second. You didn't mention horrible games until after you said Yu-Gi-Oh.
Okay. Touche. You got me.
Sorry.
All right. Sorry. Good catch, though. Good catch.
Floor's back to you.
But in short, basically, people are always going to do this. Like we're always going to see people take these decks. Like you said, James, it's going to spread like wildfire. When people realize what works really well, it will always spread like wildfire. And again, this is not just like board games or card games. This is in board games. This is in video games. There's a reason why, for example, if you were to play like even down to single player games, like a Final Fantasy game where you're farming experience points, someone has a strategy the best way to do that. So you go to your internet forum and you read it, and that's what you do. And that's how you know what the most effective way to do something in the game is. People always do this pretty much. In my experience, people do this for any game.
But I think even if you did blind testing, right? Like if you were to say and go into a room and just run the gauntlet, I think right now you would, without being influenced, I think you would still come to the conclusion that NBN is just in a good state.
Yeah. No, I agree with that too. I think if you just sat down with the cards and you reviewed, you reviewed the you went like basically faction to faction, and you were like, all right, I see this card can be good. I see this card can't be good. It's probably because it's green. Got it. I see this card can be good. Like when you start reviewing those colors, very quickly you'll go, oh wow, look at all the synergy here with the cards in this faction. And then you're like, oh, well, these don't really do much. There's a lot of cards here that aren't useful. There aren't many cards here that are useful. Looks like all the useful cards are here. How do I fit all these good cards into this little color, this one color? And that's basically, I think, what ends up happening. The only difference is that yellow has so many good tools by itself without splashing that it does really, really well.
So do you think it's just hard, like, with something like the style that they've built for Netrunner with this deck building element, do you think it's just hard to balance a game where each card is given a value and like this influence system, and I can just take what I want from other factions? Because now we have that problem we can't make something too good, because then it boosts up a certain faction, but then we don't want to make it too bad, because then it's the faction itself is going to be hurt by it, right? Like Criminal, yeah. we look at what Criminal has right now, and Criminal has some good cards, but they're just like, they fell off.
Yeah,
they
have actually. So I just talked about this online in StimHack. It's in Stim Slack. There's some unique tools they have that I don't know if they've utilized to the best of their ability. Now, Most Wanted list is fantastic. I personally hope that always is a thing, because it allows them to give a very quick sort of resolution if they need to a card. So I don't mind the Most Wanted list. There's one thing that I think that they of course can always look at. They can always look at, number one, making sure that cards within a certain faction have a lot of influence so that it's very difficult to take out of faction. An example of a card that misses mark, I think, would be a card like Temujin. Temujin Contract could have easily been 3 influence, making it almost pretty much impossible to splash. But it being 2 means that it's very easily splashable.
Yeah, good. But here's a good point. I'll interject there. Sorry to cut you. I think they need to be a little more aggressive than on the influence. And then, like, another example, I think Apocalypse should have been a little higher to pull in.
Yeah.
That card is so powerful.
Here's something that I heard about that was very neat, that they have not done, but I thought about it, and I was like, oh, that would be cool. Imagine if they had a different color pip, where basically influence a card in a faction was, like, let's say, for example, NBN had a card that was like a red pip on it.
Unsplashable?
And what that red pip... Well, it would still be splashable, but it would mean a different influence. It means that in order for NBN to use that card, it inherently has to also cost an influence, and it would be outside the purview of the Most Wanted list. It's a card that is in faction, but it actually hurts that faction to have it because it is that powerful. And for another faction to splash it, they pay twice that amount of influence, or whatever the number is. Basically, we already have cards like this in Global Food Initiative. Global Food Initiative is a influence card, is a 1 influence card that's neutral.
Yes, I'm just having a hard time thinking. So, are you saying just make cards that are going to be super powerful just neutral, so every faction has to pay for it?
No, I'm saying make a card in a faction that could be potentially unsplashable and only usable in one faction with influence. So imagine if NBN had a card that basically was... NBN had a card where it was so good to where it actually itself required influence to use, but no one else could splash it. It has its own separate pip. No one else can use that influence.
So if it had...
No one else can influence this card.
If it had 2 red dots, then it costs NBN 2 red to use it, but it costs somebody else 4 reds per card? Or 4 influence for that?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of different ways they can play with this. This is my pie in the sky conversation from earlier, but there's a lot of, like, different things they've played with, and they've also kind of teased this. Remember, there is an ID that will never see play, but it's definitely, I think, a step in the right direction for some unique ideas. There's an HB identity that says 22 influence You can't play red cards. You can't play detective cards in this deck. And it's interesting to me that like there's not enough cards printed that say, for example, cannot be played in this faction. This card cannot be played in Criminal. This card cannot be played in Shaper. This card cannot be played in HB. It cannot be played in Wayland. It cannot be played like imagine if they had like
instead of the what was it called, the Alliance stuff, instead of that where it's like, hey, if you splash enough of this one color, then these cards are free.
Right.
It's like the opposite. Like you can't use these at all.
Yeah, if no other faction can use this card. And what that does is that allows them to make a really powerful card for a faction, like Boom, as an example, but keeps it so that it's not really the flavor of that card is so much into what that faction is supposed to be doing, it doesn't move. It's not meant to be moved.
Yeah.
So
and I think to throw into that a little bit, I think maybe that goes back to my whole faction identity and theme. Like what draws a player to a faction. Because, I mean, if you go through, like, if you're a Wayland fan, if you're still there, you've been waiting. But, and you're just like, what I love about this faction, big mega corporations, lots of money, they blow your shit up. They just detonate your city block. But then you go and you see NBN can do that better than your faction that's supposed to be known for doing that. But you're like, I don't want to play NBN. I want to do this in Wayland, and that looks like that's a problem.
Yeah.
So on the devil's advocate side, do you think that kind of system would make the game a little less fun because then we're not playing those mind games? What has he included? What is he doing over here? You know, Corey, you talked about the Butcher Shop decks. Would it have? I know it sucked if you playing against it because it was such a taxing mind game in itself. But do you think it would lose some of that competitive funness if you didn't have to be like, all right, is he on the kill? I have to figure this out. I have so much time, blah, blah, blah. Because I don't know what's coming because it's so easy to move these cards from faction to faction.
So see, I come from a big miniature game background. And miniature games.
A big miniature?
Yeah, I see it. Now I'm out later. But anyway, I mean, a big part of that game is like you pick a faction, you pick an army, you pick a group or whatever. This is their identity. This is the skill set they have. And so then when you play against it, you understand what you're likely to do. So having that like specific identity and knowing the tools available can like your opponent understands like different ways they have to play against it. They're kind of more expecting of what can be there, and it allows you to kind of build that identity. Like you pick a group based on what play style you like and what draws you to it. And so like when like the Butcher Shop thing or whatever, when it's just like they can just take cards from other factions and they can have these tools, and then it's not readily available, knowledge of what they might have. It's difficult. Yeah, it can be annoying.
Yep.
Anything else, Hollis, that you wanted to add into that?
Oh no, that's it.
The second piece of that puzzle is would you guys rather have a system that goes to what Hollis was talking about, that triangle? Would you rather have all decks are pretty much powerful, like have one big strength and then one huge weakness, and then the other decks either capitalize on that one guy's weakness and have their a weakness of their own, so we get that circle, and you're trying to obviously make your matchup against your lesser of the two better, so more of your influence is bringing up your
weak side.
Yeah. Right, but then because the power level of the cards are so great that do we create diversity that way? I never really played it myself, but I heard Pokemon is very much like this, where there's like a rock paper scissor aspect underlying it.
So I have friends that actively play the Pokemon card game, and according to them, the game is like that. You're generally going to have a deck that is a little better, but it's
like a water will beat grass or whatever, or no, a grass will beat water, but a water will beat the fire. Fire beats grass, kind of thing. But you have to put in what you need to bring your weaker matchup up better, or predict, make a call like how many people are going to take grass. Do I need to take this?
Right. And again, I think you get some of that. I think you get some of that in Netrunner. But the problem is, I feel like a lot of the best decks, like a lot of the most common ones, if we're doing it comparatively, in Pokemon, when someone has a type advantage like that, what's happening is that it leaves room for a really, really big swing for your opponent. Whereas in Netrunner, I don't think the swing is as large. I think that in Netrunner, the swing is usually a lot smaller because of the amount of tech.
So, Corey, what do you think? Would you rather see a rock paper scissors aspect to the game though? Like,
that's a tough call, because then a lot of your matchups is just like, do I play against this? Cool, you win.
Yeah.
And
but do you not feel that it's almost
I think
like
that's
that
cool.
now?
Well, I think it's cool if you can make the match, as long as the matchups still have a lot of player skill aspect involved in it, where it's not just like a straight up like auto lose. And maybe you still have that, because I still think there's some pretty jank build decks that if they come up against something that's just like the absolute, like, they get crushed. But if you don't have an answer to it, you don't have a way to deal with it. I think you saw that with DLR Val last year. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough thing to say. Like, I think that's a good idea. I feel like in the ideal world, right, you would want like 4 or 5 decks that are all like equally powerful, or at least right next to each other, and so you have variety in what you could bring and do well with, as opposed to this deck is the best, bring this deck.
Is it not so much then on faction for Netrunner? Would you say that that it's even deeper than that? It's more ID. Like, you just can't take any old NBN and make it good right now, right?
Yeah, that's true. You can't take any NBN ID and make it good. You could probably only take about 4 or 5 of them.
What's that, out of 6?
Yeah.
No, but like, it's not just that the cards aren't available, right? It's just how they, it really plays the ID is a big piece of what the deck is, right? So that's why we're not seeing that diversity as well, right? Maybe some of these runners or corps are just lackluster at the moment.
But I guess if you look at, and I don't want us to harp, I think we've harped on this a lot already, and we probably should start talking about decks other than this, but I think if you look at the fact
I think it's a good discussion, because it's something that it's a huge thing that happened in the game, right? Like, about how non-diverse the world championships were.
If you look at your 2 top factions, right, NBN, Anarch, and then the fact that most of them, the core card components of the deck are almost the same, that you could just take a lot of the IDs, shuffle them, and deal them out to the same core deck build, and still have a pretty solid deck if you didn't end up with the ID initially. Like, I could take an Anarch build and be like, here's Wizard, and you 2 guys with the same deck, here's Max, and here you can have, like, Null, you can take, just whatever, just giving them, and they can still do really well with that deck. And I think same thing with a lot of the NBN builds. You can be like, here's Sync, here's Soul, here's, NEH, that ID is pretty good. Here's, and you can take the same core parts of those decks and still do incredibly well. And I think some of the other IDs or other factions don't really have those type of decks. Criminal probably has it a little bit, but that's probably, it's not to the level that like Anarch and NBN have it.
Yeah.
Where sometimes the ID is really just a little bit of character you can give the deck. Do I want to trash your assets more? Do I just don't want you to res ice? Do I just not want you to use ice ever? Do I just, stuff like that.
So then, here's the transition. Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Then we're going into store championships. How big of a factor is this carrying into store championships?
Well, I think in the early part, like if you're playing in a store championship this week, next week, up until at least probably the next data pack comes out, and even the ones that have happened, previous to this, it's been a factor. Because you have to look at the results. I mean, I feel like if you're looking to play competitive, you have to look at the world results and be like, oh, guess those decks are good. I would like to do well with the store champ. Those guys did really well with the deck that had to beat like 200 and something people. I've only got to beat like 16. So if I bring one of those decks, my odds are looking pretty good. I don't even have to play them as good as those guys at Worlds. I just have to play them better than the 14, 15 other people that show up at my store champ. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big impact. But you're going into where cycles will release. So as store champs progress, hopefully you'll see power cards for other factions. And so there'll be people who will show up that'll bring curveballs, or there'll be cards for other factions that'll come out that'll start to hopefully bring the needle down and swing some other stuff up.
I think it's going to be improved by just more, like Corey said, just more and more cards. I think that I feel like on my end, I talk a lot of shit, even if not out loud. I feel like on my end, I talk a lot of shit about the things that FFG is doing that I don't like, because I talk about it all the time. I think a lot of people do it a lot of the time. But it's so rare that I think FFG gets to hear the positives. But as consumers and as fans of the game, I think we have all these negative opinions because we want the game to do well and continue doing well. This game has made a lot of us friends. It's given us, an uncounted amount of hours to enjoy ourselves and have fun. But when things are broken, things are broken. And the only thing that'll fix it are going to be more cards. More cards, errata, changes to the most wanted list. All those things combined are kind of what have to happen in order to see the meta become more diverse. So until we get more cards from FFG, until they make errata on cards that may have been too powerful or too weak, until cards get added or removed from the most wanted list, we're going to see the existing decks that are, as powerful as they are, remain. That's what we're changing.
So there's some key pieces in a store championship, in a regionals, then somewhat in a national setting here that cannot be changed or affected, and that is the release schedule of the packs, right, and the scheduling of the tournaments, right. The releases are kind of like globally. They're a little all over the place, and FFG can only control them so much, right? We've seen delays, shippings, things like that. That's out of their control. Yeah, in the past, certain factors, they try and do as good a job they can to get the packs out when they're scheduled to be released, or for that month gap in between that we're accustomed to when things are rolling good. Store championships come and they give you that, we already said the date range, and in that range you can schedule your store championship whenever your store wants to. That being said, the ones that start now deal with this, pool of cards. the ones that delay deal with a different pool of cards. So that fluctuates, that can't change, or that can't be affected. But what can be is I think that maybe rules should be in place about what should be legal and what shouldn't be a little better for Store Championship season, so it keeps kind of the world almost on a consistent playing field. And I would like to see the most wanted list changed a little more vigorously. I think that people that play competitive and that do the heavy lifting about the deck testing and the run the gauntlets and put the homework in on these decks, I really don't think they mind changes. I don't think that anyone's been out there, they're like, I've been testing this deck for 4 months and now I have to tweak it, because we're living in a living card game world here, and we expect the game to change, right? Living card game. We expect the game to change next month when a new set of cards comes out. So putting restrictions on old cards, I don't think that's an issue. And I would really like to see, even before bigger tournaments, before this Store Championship happened, I really feel like there should have been a most wanted list update to divide, like, this was last season, this is this new season going forward. It was a perfect time to release it. They know what cards are coming. So they could have done something, or they could have looked at the results from Worlds and said, okay, we need to fix this up since we have another major tournament just around the corner.
Yeah.
Just because of how close Worlds ends, Store Championships are starting now with this new cycle of
this restructure.
Yeah, the restructure. About how their games are broken up and for the two worlds. So I really feel that there should have been a hard cut and said, here's the new most wanted list going into it. I don't think people care about waiting 6, 7, 8 months once a card comes out. If something comes out and there's a major tournament and people are saying that this card is broke, then just, errata it or most wanted list it, whatever that terminology is, quicker.
Or ban it.
Or ban it.
I know that's like a scary term for this game, but
there is a fear, I think, when a company puts a product out and for people to say you can't use that card anymore. But how many cards are you actually using? If you've been in this game since day one, how many cards have you not touched that if you left out on your floor would just be covered in dust right now because they haven't moved?
Yeah, there's a fair bit.
Right, so I don't think people get into a card game like this, and this is collectible for some arguments, because we've built up these collections. So I don't think that there's an issue with people saying, "Hey, I haven't played with this card," or "Now this card is useless," because, and not, I mean useless on a competitive sense, right? And that being said, about cards not being used, rotation could have happened a lot more aggressively. But that's a whole different argument, and I don't even know if I've derailed.
No, I mean you're fine.
From there too,
You're
but
fine.
I that's what I would have liked to see.
I will jump in a little bit that I do also agree that I think rotation should happen sooner. I think they drag it on a little too much. I feel like rotation should probably be 2 cycles earlier than it is now. Constantly keep the card pool changing. Would keep stuff fresh like every year, every season, if they did that a bit more. These are just my opinions.
No, I also agree.
Because even right now, like, there's no way. Like, would you tell somebody that now's a good time to get into the game?
No.
Whoa, yeah, absolutely. All you need to buy is the NBN and Anarch big boxes, and the core
and you're
set,
competitive,
and you've
Wow.
got great stuff. Like, absolutely, this is amazing time if you want to go to competitive events. Just borrow those blackmails from a friend of yours who's playing another Anarch deck, and you are golden.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but I don't know how many packs of Genesis Cycle is being sold. Like, I don't know when those numbers dip down and why they think that they're still out there selling Genesis packs. Every time I've seen somebody try and get into the game, it's from somebody getting out. So it's almost like a one in, one out. I'm selling my collection.
Yeah.
That being said, getting back to some of the decks we're seeing, but we are seeing a little bit of diversity. I don't know if people are going too far off the rails now, because I'm seeing I saw an amazingly cool Andy list and then the Sunny list that got posted up there. What the heck is Power Tap doing in decks, guys?
hey, I watched one of those games with that Sunny deck, and hats off to the person who created that, because that deck is cool as hell. It's really janky, really weird, but when you get
Hollis
that
and I
combo
know that man very well.
yeah, but when you see that combo in action and happening, it's a thing of beauty.
That's Mad Max out of Detroit there.
Yeah.
The Michigan crew. I don't know if he's actually from Detroit.
But so I guess let's talk about some decks that you might see at your local store champ.
I think it's time. I think Blue Sun could be a good swing right now.
You think so?
Well,
it
just took home a plaque, got some hardware. I think it's in a good state. Although I thought Glacier was in a good state going into Worlds. Not that I took it, but I thought HB would have been a little more peppered across the top tier, but sadly no. So yeah, I think a lot of people are going into some of these decks that are tag and trace punishment, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at Security Nexus is good right now. Obelisk is just ripping as a console right now, and that's just, I'll take tags, I'll draw cards, ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. So I think people are kind of looking at direct counters almost to what yellow is bringing to the table, and they're just hoping that they can see these pieces before NBN can fast advance something out on you.
Yeah. Sweet.
Hollis?
So Hollis, why don't you start off with some decks, some things people might see.
Yeah. So, we've talked about now at length the likelihood of us seeing NBN decks and yellow decks. I'll start with Corp because it is the easiest, and just kind of give a scope here of decks you'll see within that realm. So, the two decks you're going to see probably most often are going to be our first and second place Corp deck from Worlds this year, which was CTM, featuring cards like One Bad Virtual Tour, Pad Campaign, Since the Actors Union, things like that. To exchange of information. I'm sorry, what'd you say, Jameson?
Isn't it the snake? This is the snake.
The snake. The snake. The snake. The snake bite. The snake bite. Yeah. So the snake bite deck is going to be really popular. I think you're going to see iterations of that for sure. That deck is a standard CTM deck. You've seen all kinds of flavors of CTM, but they all kind of do the same thing, which is give you the GFI, they take it back. They give you a GFI, the score breaking news, they take it right back.
They kept the receipt on that GFI.
Yeah, they kept it. They were like, didn't know, thought you had this.
Return.
Yeah, and then the other deck you'll see is called Fiery Inferno, which is very similar. The thing is that they're different decks, but the tools they use are very similar. It's a sync deck that utilizes hard-hitting news, exchange of information, closed accounts, and maybe psychographics. That's
Punch.
Yeah.
Punch all to the face. Those cards, man.
Yeah.
They're just so powerful, man. Each one.
Yeah.
Each one when you
It's-
played, you do not want to see it.
It's combo, man. They're all combo. They work well together. But basically, you'll see a sync deck also that utilizes those fantastic tools. But usually that comes in two flavors. The first flavor we normally see, the very first flavor, tends to be a boom combination where they're running 2x boom, and what they do is they utilize their breaking newses and their ability to tag you to have a scorch plan, or excuse me, a boom plan as a secondary win condition. So it kind of punishes heavy aggression there. The other way you can go that I've seen is also using bodic laborers, going all in on the fast advance plan, and simply, as soon as they can, they'll fast advance an agenda, or fast advance or breaking news to still GFIs. There's a lot, there's a lot of fun little tricks that work with bodic labor and cards like breaking news and exchange of information. So
I'm sorry. Did you say fun?
sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, about that.
Again, the floor is yours.
So basically, like, those are the two. I think those are going to be the two most common corporations you're going to see. Any others you guys think of that you want to point out here that kind of just like
just other corp decks?
Yes.
So some things that may not be in BN.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, yes, like I said, I think since Blue Sun won one of the first store championships, I think that people will look at that and give that list a try and make a couple
I do
changes.
think you, and also there's Wayland fans who are, and I think Blue Sun's probably one of the strongest, so you're likely to see that. I have been seeing on like Jinteki and some streams that, and I think I even saw a stream yesterday that like there was a pretty good RP deck that was floating around. It was really weird, but it was cool.
Mm.
I don't know what other faction decks have been doing well that's not NBN. Other than Blue Sun. Like, I've actually seen a good number of Blue Sun. I've been playing with like a Blue Sun deck that's been a lot of fun. So I definitely think that's something to consider that you might see. I think a lot of your strategy though that you would play against NBN with the tag punishment will probably benefit you well in the Blue Sun matchup as well, though.
Yeah.
So. Are there any Jinteki decks that should be called out? I mean, there is this pretty hype Black Tree build that might show up at certain events.
Up, down, right, left, start,
Yeah.
start select, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I can tell you that if someone's playing Obelisk against you, you might have a little trouble.
Yeah.
It is an uphill battle, and I mean like a 90-degree climb. Not impossible, but just difficult though.
Difficult though.
Yeah. I don't know immediately like other IDs out of Jinteki that you should be just absolutely prepared to play against. I think you're liable to see some people that might play some variations on like Black Tree, RP, or Pilana.
I think
trying to do either like damage or trying to hold on to Glacier, even though it's a dying animal.
I think you're going to see some fun, like a little bit of people trying their more pet decks.
Yeah.
So I think that Jinteki potential unleashed. There'll be a couple people that will try that out because that's still very new. A lot of people might have had these IDs on the back burner while they concentrated on Worlds for a while, trying to get their reps in with their top decks. The one that I am unsure about, and I really hope it sees some play, but I don't think it's going to come out in numbers, is the Architects of Tomorrow. Because we're just getting it right now. It's not like an auto one, like when Smoke, Hollis can talk about that on the other side of things. But I think Architects of Tomorrow is out in a time where people just don't have time to get that deck right yet. Unless unless your store champ is the one that's like the very last week of when you could possibly run a store champ, then that will be a different story. It might have, like, depend on what comes out in these last couple packs here to assist that ID, but right now I'm not so sure the optimal build is going to be found for architects. Might still be someone that brings it.
You will still see ETF, obviously.
Yes.
And guaranteed there might be that one guy who brings CI.
I was going to ask about that too, because CI hovered at Worlds. Those
one guy.
I think there was a couple people running CI's combos.
Mm-hmm.
That one guy. Right?
So I don't want to tell you to be prepared for it, but if you get paired up versus that guy, sorry.
Be prepared.
Yep.
Yeah. That guy was waiting his whole life to play you. So, yeah. But I think that's it. I don't have anything else I can think of. I mean, I don't see anything right now that this appears to be like amazingly dominant in the Corp meta. And I honestly feel like Corp's really hard to play right now.
Yeah. And that's
like,
coming
really hard.
And that's looking at what the top decks we expect. I mean, you go to these tournaments and obviously you're going to see people showing up just for fun with whatever stuff they throw together that they like to play, right? Some people don't. The people that don't have to travel that far usually bring the coolest decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hollis, what about the flip side of things?
On the runner, El Runner.
Yeah.
Runner. So we'll start with the Anarchs because we discussed Anarchs were some of the most popular and some of the strongest decks. There's a couple different flavors. I think actually there might even be more flavors in Anarch than there are. Okay, more flavors in Anarch than there are in NBN. Yeah, I know. I know. So looking at it, for example, so we've got DLR Max. Now I'm not saying that's the number one out of Anarch. I'm just simply going down a list effectively.
In no particular order, these are the runners you will see.
Yeah. You're going to see DLR Max. We've seen it before. It won 2015 World Champion.
Is DLR going to be cycled out soon or what? Are we at the max? Has there been every, no pun intended, have we seen every iteration of DLR that we are going to see? Is someone Omar DLRing yet?
No, but I mean they're probably just going to use another runner anyway.
They'll rebirth it.
Yeah, I mean I don't know. It's going to happen.
But I mean, let's again, that Sunny DLR deck, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean,
Sunny DLR now.
Really?
Yeah, man. I mean, you don't feel like when they're like, I'll Jack Sinclair run, take a tag off Masanori, DLR you, and then remove it with Citadel Sanctuary. Is there not a point in your mind where you're just watching that engine happen and you're like, good on you, man.
Cool.
You've earned this. I'm gonna gladly put these cards into my archives.
Yeah,
you've earned it.
That's about the same time that I'm picking up my one pad campaign from the table and saying, "Thanks for my participation prize."
Yeah.
Jeez, that's so much salt. All right, so no,
it's that pink Himalayan salt.
DLR, you have DLR Max, like I said before. We've seen that. If you're not equipped to deal with it, if you don't, when you sit down in front of someone, if you don't know their own DLR, which you probably should guess it if they're on Max, if you don't know their own DLR, then they can definitely take advantage of that and get set up to the point where there's really not a lot you can do except hope that you can rush out before it's too late, right? So that deck is powerful because if you don't have an available answer to it, they can demolish you. You've got a Val deck, and you've got a Wizard deck. Now the thing is I'm going to say this: there are two versions. So I've seen a Val deck and a Wizard deck that do very similar things. They generally tend to run Obelisk and Siphon, which is very common. That's the Hate Bear archetype, if I recall. I've seen it in Val. I've seen it in Wizard. But I've also seen Dumble Fork Still Remain in Wizard. Standard Temujin Wizard is there.
Yeah.
And then the newest spice. Corey, tell them about that new spice on that Val deck.
Was it Myth Val?
Yes.
Oh my god. If you've not played against one of these, just do it.
Just Nike.
Just do it. Yeah, it's rough. And if you aren't ready for it, it's going to wreck you hard.
Yes.
It's done me.
Val. Oh, it's stern. Myth Val, for those of you that don't know, is the Val deck that plays, a combination a combination that you're satisfied with of knife, spoon, and fork, but it also runs in 3x en passant, which allows you to basically utilize cards like DDoS, allow you utilize cards like blackmail, and start trashing ice on top of the knifed, spoon, and fork cards that are in the deck. So effectively, what they're doing is we mentioned before, in like the last episode we did, where we talked about Anarchs and the fact that they have these tools to kill ice brings the runner back to like the early game, or the Corp, excuse me. Brings the Corp back to the early game, where they had 6 ice, but now they have 4, and then now they have 2, because you're constantly destroying ice. That Valencia, the Miffed Val Passant deck does this. It pushes them back to the beginning of the game, and eventually they can start digging with mediums, and just seeing the cards they need to see to close the game out.
Yeah, and then once you feel like you start to stabilize, they'll like rebirth into Omar, and then still get in your R&D through medium digs by murdering the one piece of ice you have guarding archives.
Yep.
Anyway, then before I think this deck even got like a name, when Worlds was going on, a large group of us did like an event for those who didn't go to Worlds, and we used the pack with en passant early because it released that week. And David, one of our players, played all very similar build to this and just wrecked. I don't think he gave up a single game out of, I think like he probably played like 8 to 10 on the runner side.
Yep.
And it's just plan for it. Think about what you would do if you pair up against something like that. What's your game plan? Because you're likely to see one of these. It's good. Pretty
good.
Yeah.
And there is a nice linked Andy out. I don't know what people are calling it, that runs the a little bit of links, some rabbits, and power taps with the clear tag. What's the new card, Corey?
Citadel Sanctuary.
Sanctuary. Have you seen it? It's I thought that I read somewhere that it was a Chris Hanks build.
I don't know. Is it DLR as well, or does it actually have another game plan for trying to win the game?
Let me look. Power Nexus Andy is what it's called.
Oh, okay.
It has Security Nexus, resources, no DLR.
Okay, so it actually tries to play Netrunner?
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that?
Yeah.
So what other?
I have run this a couple times, and it's really nifty. The rabbit holes with the Nexus, building up a little bit of link, the power taps in there to generate money. At that point, you have a good base against anyone that's bringing yellow.
Mm-hmm. So are we moving into criminal? Are we in some other criminal ideas?
No, go ahead. Take a bite.
Yeah. So the Andy, I guess, is a good one. Other ones to be mindful of is you're very likely to see variations on Geist between the Siege Geist build and then some of the Geist deck that Ben posted up, old Peachak there that he took, that he played some of the Worlds and that Pacer borrowed and played at Worlds and did really well with. Geist, I think, is he's kind of always been right there on the cusp, and he just keeps getting tools. They just kind of sneak him out there, and he's a good solid build, and that's definitely another runner, that you're likely to play, because he's been popping up there in top spots, and so just get ready for that, because you'll probably see one.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Any other criminals?
Nope.
No.
No.
I can say
no one else.
Did you mention smoke yet? We're gonna see a lot of smoke.
Oh, we're still on criminal, man. Hold
Nah,
on.
close the door.
Yeah. Man, so we just had a discussion on competitive criminal, and no one mentioned Leela's not making it. Leela's not showing up anymore. Sad. So sad.
I just don't know
Okay.
if people are interested in playing Leela.
Well, I think her strength was she did really well versus those fast advancing BN, and that's not that style in like NEH. And Glacier was also a thing. She's pretty good, and Glacier doesn't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Let's move on to Shaper.
Can I go now?
Yeah.
I think people will see smoke.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out to Co Marvelous
Yeah.
for the deck list of the week. This is gonna have everybody at local store champs everywhere piloting that deck.
Yeah.
So, because I always think about that. Like, whenever there's a tournament, even if it's a small one, the first thing I do is check Netrunner DB to check the deck list of the week and be like, someone's playing this deck today. Like, someone has to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. But Smoke's good.
And
It's a cool deck. I've had some other friends have been playing it, and they've been enjoying it. So, yeah, and also Smoke is the hotness right now.
yeah, smoke,
Yeah.
Kate,
Haley.
Haley.
Yep.
Those last two have never changed. They've
No.
been consistently played for a while now.
And I mean,
I mean Kate. She's been played for a little bit.
Just a tad.
I think it's funny that just as a point that's out here, I think it's funny that the two Kate decks to me that have stood out the most. One was obviously Nexus, but the other one was made by Aaron Andres called Annoying AF Kate.
Yeah.
Where he utilizes cards like Data Folding and Underworld Contacts, but he doesn't actually use Security Nexus. He uses Toolbox. Woo boy, throwback to the past.
Hey man, I know a guy who played Kate and used Toolbox. He might be in this cast.
Woo
So-
boy.
Well, in fairness, I did get tipped off by Aaron. He gave me a shell,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I tweaked it off.
Yeah.
So-
It's pretty cool.
Yes.
I remember commenting about it. I was like, oh yeah, it's not too shabby.
It was really strong. It's a
Yeah.
really good deck.
Mhm.
And if anyone even just wants to pick it up and run it for store champs, it should do very well.
Yeah, actually, my local store champ was won by that deck.
What? Really?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Damn! Look how I'm calling them already.
Yeah, our
That's
local,
So you can tell right there. I had no knowledge of that, and I told you it was going to be there, and it was.
Our local
So-
player Corey, he won with that.
Nice. Good on him. What was his Corp ID? You probably shouldn't. tell
CTM.
us.
It was CTM. It was CTM. It was for sure.
So I guess to go back a little bit. So if on some of these shapers, because I know Smoke is something you might like to see. What do you think, in your opinion, what's Smoke's weak point? Like, what's her strength right now as a deck? Obviously, I guess would be speed and efficiency with stealth. But what's her weak point? How do you counteract Smoke?
Oh, shattered remains everywhere.
Is it pretty much like Tag Threat? Is it pretty much like Tag Storm?
I think so, because a lot of her rig, especially because she uses Netmerker, is like almost a cornerstone of her being able to her deck to work. Netmerker is sort of a cornerstone of her deck working reliably, and so as a result, because you need that resource to be in play, because it is so important to making sure you have ample stealth credits to make runs as needed. Being vulnerable to tags is dangerous. And in a meta where the primary Corp decks tag very often, or that's their primary goal, it makes that card that is effectively a cornerstone of the deck, the Netmarker,
Fragile.
easy. Yeah, fragile. It makes it really fragile. I mean, if your whole strategy depends on that, and that card's gone,
Line.
it can hurt everything. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
It makes it what's it called?
Yeah.
Line.
Like-
Fragile. Oh, fragile.
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 Accent.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there we just hit on like what's might be the most popular shaper. This is all hypotheticals. So if we jump back to what might be the most, what would you think out of the criminal decks we named? Sorry, I'm jumping around. What do you think would be the most popular? What are you most likely to see? Would you guess Geist?
From the criminal perspective?
Yeah. Or would you guess the Andy?
I would.
Flavor of Andy.
I would have to just say Andy. I think that people still like to play that as criminal.
Cool. So then, if you're on the Corp side and you see Andy, what do you think would be your play strategy to beat the Andy deck?
My play, I don't know.
I'm just trying to see if we can give some perspective.
Yeah, no, but I'm just trying to think
from the other
about.
side.
I'm just trying to think about what deck you're going to be playing. Like, you thinking about what to take? Because I mean, for me personally, if you're asking me, I'm just the kind of guy that brings something that no one's going to really be expecting, and then I just play my own game. Like play against. If you take that Jinteki deck that's the PE one, and you want to play against a smoke. Well, that smoke player is going to be hustling, trying to get their rig set up, doing stuff, and me, I'm like, install one piece of ice, and here's a bunch of assets face down. I mean, it's still, my game plan doesn't change from deck to deck, from runner to runner that I play. People need to adapt their styles, right? Because you look at playing a damage deck in smoke, and you're thinking to yourself, especially like PE, where it can damage off turn, where like as the Corp, if I score out my agenda, then I'm hitting you as well. In a situation like that, you're like, well, I have this piece of my rig in my hand. I better install it, because what if they snipe it out, right? So you get these shaper builds, and I think that and some of these other builds. That they're just going to draw the cards and they're going to want to get them down. And there's nothing funnier when you're playing a Jinteki damage deck like that and you're just seeing them kind of waste their turns setting up. So I'm having a hard, like, coming off the cuff and saying how do we combat that? I'd have to know what style of deck.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess like a majority of people may not be bringing PE. But PE is also one of those decks that they try to dictate the game. And I feel like there's also a divide between, like, are you playing a deck that tries to be more reactionary, or are you playing a deck that tries to set the tone and the pace of the game? That you're trying to be in the driver's seat, making them react to your plays. As opposed to, I'm just trying to survive this, block, like their punches, their moves, so I can score out my stuff and win my game.
Well, I would like to add also, a friend of mine, Johnny, made a good point about like the interaction between like criminal in the current meta versus like a lot of these popular decks that we're seeing on the Corp side. So the difficulty here is that criminal just got an amazing economy boost in the form of Temujin contract, which is fine. That's fantastic. But Andy, in a weird way, is almost anti-synergistic with Temujin versus those yellow decks. Here's why. Because sweeps week. So,
yeah,
like, Temujin gives you the ability as criminal to get a really big, like, economy boost early in the game. But Andy starts with 9 cards in her hand. So she can't really abuse a turn 1, install Temujin, run. Like, that's not something she can do. So, Andy decks generally are going to, as an amazing start, maybe they do something akin to, and again, I'm going to dig in my box here, a sure gamble into a career fair, into a Earthrise Hotel, into a security testing, and then into a anything else. Like at that point, the fourth card or whatever else they're doing is irrelevant.
Oh, they didn't get the
So-
Desperado in their opening hand. You
Sure,
did Mulligan?
sure.
Jeez.
I mean, yeah, sure. Sure. They put the Despy in there if you want. But what that ultimately means is that, like, on the Corp, so on the runner side, they technically haven't made much money when Andy starts the game. But the moment the Corp starts, Andy's got 9 cards in hand. So any sweep at all means that NBN is now going, well, I'm at +8, and I know you're Andy, and I know runs are coming on all servers. So I'll make sure I block all servers. Go ahead. So that means that in order to be able to actually get a value off of that Temujin, they got to put more resources in. They got to use a special order or play the breaker. They got to make the run. And hopefully the ice is not weak so they can actually, one, avoid giving you money via pop-up windows or spending more money than they want to. Which means that any deck opens itself up to, potentially, hard-hitting newses and other things like that. It's a very weird game you have to play as criminal because you don't have the ability to stop fast event decks. You have to have aggression to score agendas, but too much aggression too early means that you are basically, for the most part, permanently tagged. And even though you can run cards like networking, like I mentioned before, this is a slot in your deck for this. Whereas in another matchup, networking does nothing. Against HB, networking does actually nothing.
Yeah.
It is actually like nothing. You're just sad.
Hey man, when you let that you let that last sub on Ichi 1.0 fire, and you just like, and you take the brain and the tag, right?
Sure.
And you just like nailed it. Networking.
but you're Andy. You already have a link though. Like
Hey, look, man, don't crush this.
He ain't a player. He just crushed a lot.
I didn't.
Oh my god.
So where do you guys think then is the thing to do here? Like what style, right? Like to me, I look at it and I think that I think it's a weird. It's going to be very meta call dependent on what you think is going to be there, and then just take the counter to it.
I think there's some strong decks. I mean, obviously we've talked about earlier. There's some strong decks you can safely bring, and if you understand how to play them and you're familiar with what you're going to play against, you can do really well with.
If a lot of people show up at your store champ in the past or at your game store that are highly competitive, you probably know what you're going to have to face. If you're playing in a store champ where it's just you and a bunch of local people that just have fun, and it's not as competitive, I think you just have a good time and bring, you know, just don't bring NBN. Don't be that one guy, right? Because I think you'll see a lot of Anarch, just because of the en passant is now again another incredibly powerful addition in a faction that didn't need an incredibly powerful addition. That's the dominant card out right now in that pack. So be prepared. So you know, you're looking at these decks. If you're thinking about running something like the Architects of Tomorrow or something that has a little more ice, or if you're like, oh, I'm going to see a bunch of smoke, so I'm going to try and do Glacier style to tax out their stealth credits and play that kind of game, you're going to have these Anarchs that are just going to come in there and eat those alive. And just, you know, you're not even going to have a chance to res your stuff because they're DDoS, blackmail, en passant, boom, 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 and... You know,
yeah.
At the end of the day, you've got your participation pack.
Just discard your ice.
Yeah.
That's
So I don't know.
Yeah, it can be rough.
Right. So I think it goes back to saying that if you play in a competitive meta, you're probably going to have to take a yellow deck and an Anarch deck. That's what you're going to see. Expect the majority to be that right now. Expect not much to change from Worlds, I guess, is basically the moral of the story.
If your store champ's coming up soon.
Soon, right now.
I mean, if you're towards the end of the season, if you're like in the February area, you might see some variation. There might be something that'll come out in some of the packs that might swing a little bit. I still don't think there's going to be something that's going to come out that's going to bring NBN down a peg.
No,
because it's way ahead of the ladder.
No, and we've never traditionally seen a swing like that drastically for a pack in the middle or at the end of a cycle. Like nothing is going to go from being a super powerhouse and all of a sudden stuff in one pack, one card comes out and then everyone switches to that faction. Like it's nothing is going to swing the pendulum that drastic.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. Not in this next pack. I think even when it comes out right now, people will still probably be. If this week, the new pack came out, if I was playing a store championship on Saturday or Sunday, I would have no problems saying that probably NBN Anarch would still be the dominant.
Right. Yeah, the pack that's coming out. The last pack in the cycle. Like if you're in the March area or the February area.
Is something going to change drastic that all of a sudden Anarch and NBN are not at the top?
Doubtful.
Yeah. You had me second guessing myself. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you trying to catch me in a trap here?
That's it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think things could. I think we're looking at a change in two situations. I think that big box that was released, name being the TI one. What is it?
TD. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay, you know the
House. What's the name of that big box? Oh, come on, chat. What's the name of that big box? Someone. Oh, come on.
You know the Legacy Netrunner.
Yeah, Netrunner Legacy.
Netrunner Legacy. Once that once that game comes out, it's
where that game state changes and adjusts faster than the actual meta of the game.
Yeah.
Terminal directive.
Terminal directive.
There we go.
Yeah. You know what? It's really weird that who is not just going to open that game and then open those packs right away. It's like packs within packs. It's like, do not open these because they're part of this game. And I'm like, hey, I got a game this weekend. I got a tournament. Open everything.
I'm in there.
You know, can't go back now. Toast can't be bread no more.
The cool thing that's been spoiled though is it does look there's some really awesome cards coming out for Wayland, and there's some really cool cards coming out from Jinteki, and maybe some of the idea, the swing up, is just to give insane cards to every other faction. Maybe it's if everything's broken, everything's balanced, you just give crazy powerful cards to everyone and see what happens. But just make sure that they're not crazy powerful that NBN can also splash and take.
Power. Just throwing power.
That's it, man. You just throw it out there. Like, you get a crazy card. You get a crazy card.
Oh, it's like the it's like the Oprah scenario then.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Look under your chair. There's a broken ass card under there. Just pull it out. Slot it in your deck.
Slot it in.
Oh my god, I found it!
Yeah.
See, that would be crazy if I went to a store champs and all of a sudden you're like, there's a powerful card under your chair. Slot it in your deck right now. So I think that basically says where we are.
Does it sound like we had like a really grim, like, I feel like we came off, do we sound negative?
No, I think we got down to the nitty gritty. I think
yeah.
I
don't
think
want it to come off that way. I don't want you guys at home to feel like we're like doom and gloom, like it's only NBN and Anarch.
no, the game's still good. I'm vigorously working on a Builder of Nations deck, so I mean that goes to show where my mind is, right? So
I think we're just trying to do like a good job of just setting up and just be prepared. If you're going to a store champ, don't think you're going to roll up and you're going to play against like, ENDLR and Triple Light.
Yeah, no, not happening.
Like, I just want you to know that just be prepared to play against these decks. These decks are going to do well. If you bring one of these decks and you're familiar with it, you're likely to do well. Yeah, it's gonna happen. 2016.
2016.
Yeah. Cool. So
all they're saying all hidden cards are campaign only in that terminal directive.
Cool. Well, that's good. That's good.
So you're saying I can just straight up just take those cards and jack them from my Netrunner deck? Got it. Straight jack it. My friends we're probably gonna. I know for a fact that everyone's gonna buy a copy of the game, and like we're gonna sit down and they're gonna be like, "All right, guys, it's time to play." All right, I'll be like, "All right, hand me that deck. I'll shuffle it." Just kidding. I'll shuffle my real. Spell over myself. I'll shuffle my real Corp deck. Thanks.
Yeah. I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
I don't have time for this.
So, I don't have anything else to add. Do you?
No.
All right. So let's try something here. Let's give this a go. We're gonna open this up to questions. If you guys have any questions in the chat, if you'd like to say your piece, if you'd like to comment on anything we've said tonight, phone lines are now open. Opening the phone lines.
I know when the hotline bling.
You know what I needed that queue up? What's that? That Missy Elliott one. I'm on the request line.
That's Work It.
Yeah. The beginning, just the beginning, right? DJ, please.
Yes, it's Work It. Is it worth it? Let me work it. I put my thing down for.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the rest of the song. I'm just that
Yes.
voice clip. That request lines are now open. So
Yes.
I got what I got up here is our Skype that we're using. So if you want to add this, if you have a microphone handy or a good webcam or something like that, if you want your face on the nation, A&R, Bad Publicity, that's how you can find us on Skype right now. While we are live, don't try this when we're not using this.
Someone's watching the stream later, like they just don't answer.
This guy's not picking up his phone.
What a jerk. So also, this is the first night we're trying this. This is a test run.
Yeah, this is a test run.
So it may not happen.
I
might jump in and say anything. But if it does, we're just trying to add some cool little flair to the show.
Or if you just want to throw something in the chat, go ahead.
We're trying to give you all the options, guys.
Yeah.
But I want a caller. I want to see the hotline blink. Can I get the hotline blink, please?
Yeah.
Someone.
We also want to see if this idea Jameson's been cooping up works. So he's been excited about it, and I want to see it happen. So, yeah. Cool. Well, is there any questions?
You probably got to maybe do it at an earlier. Everyone's in their PJs with a hot cup of cocoa, curled up, listening to some A&R Bad Publicity.
Sultry sounds.
Sultry sounds. I also don't.
So,
want
any
to
of you guys, while we're waiting, any of you guys have any sword champs coming up?
Oh, here we go. We got one.
Oh, we got one.
We got one. Encore. What is Encore? Help me out.
What?
Sorry. The question in chat. The question in chat was, hold the phone.
No, that's a statement.
The question in chat was, you guys think Encore will make an impact? Question mark.
See, now people have to bear with me while I rejig all the other stuff.
What is Encore? Help me out.
Captain Anderson.
The question in chat was.
Yeah. So play only if you make a successful run on R&D, HQ, and Archives this turn. Take an additional turn after this one to remove Encore from the game instead of trashing it. And it's a 0 cost 4 influence shaper card.
See, now I got it. I'm thinking.
Well, Captain Anderson is on the call. Captain, are you there?
Yep.
Hey, what's going on, man? You are live on the nation.
All right. So you talked about different Well, let me mute your stream.
Yeah,
So you don't
yeah.
get double audio.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks.
So you mentioned all the different shapers, and you were kind of talking about, well, this is how you combat smoke. What's your opinions on playing against like Security Nexus and like Nexus Kate?
I'll jump in.
Sweet. Dive in, Hollis.
Ooh, okay. No. So Nexus Kate obviously has a huge. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me clarify. Are you asking about Nexus Kate versus these yellow decks?
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like Nexus Kate has a fair amount of setup involved. I recently saw a Anarch deck, for example, that's not only using 3x Magnum Opus and a ton of recursion, but it's also using 3x frantic coding, all just to find the Magnum Opus because it's a cornerstone of making the deck get its economy engine rolling and working. Looking at the way Shaper decks operate, there's SMC, which can very easily get that Magnum Opus, but it's a fairly large tempo hit to do so. And so I think that I've seen CTM decks and sync decks, if that Shaper deck is not going to be, exploding immediately and getting their board state set up perfectly, those decks can start going that fast events route where they have to say, all right, well, I've got a piece of ice or two pieces of ice real quickly and the sand. Here we go. Starting now. Boom. Here's a Bill. Boom. Here's an Astro. I'm going to put a GFI out. Advance. Do you want to touch it? No? Okay, well, that gives me two options. I either score this breaking news or I advance this GFI immediately. Shapers have a lot of tools like Clot and things like that. But it's all based on, I guess, how those cards come out really early in the game for them. The setup has to be on point for them to be able to combat the CTM and sync decks. Overall, those are the most, I think that sync and Nexus decks are one of the most hard-teched decks versus CTM and versus sync. Again, the issue is their matchup versus everyone else seems a lot less good. Because if in the off chance you actually face a Glacier deck, there's not a lot of great answers. Like, you pretty much have to run the rumor mill. And that influence gets tight when you start looking at Nexus K deck. Because you got to have the Security Nexus, and you got to and you got to have the Clot. It gets rough. It's not easy, I don't think. That's my thinking. I could be way off, but that's my thinking.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good explanation.
Um,
and then rush it
yeah.
is also the advice from chat.
Push it.
Yeah,
good.
rush it. Also, Johnny, by the way, guys, this is Johnny. It's interesting also you mentioned that because the annoying AF Kate deck actually fixes some of those issues. And the reason why it sort of fixes some of those issues is because it still utilizes Link, of course. It doesn't utilize the Nexus, but it does utilize off-click drip economy, which is the biggest disadvantage of Nexus Kate decks. Because all the economy is, I got to click for 8 here or click for 10 if you've got a lot of money. Because that's the main game plan. That deck just starts, you start the turn, and then you go, all right, well, I guess I'm gaining 4, and now I can still use my Magnum Opus plus my Beth Kilrank Chang if I want to for additional money. And just like Nexus Kate, the deck tends to run Vamp as well. So Aaron Andre's annoying AFK deck, which you probably have already seen it. He links it in his article. To me, it's arguably better than Nexus Kate, primarily because you don't get the biggest benefit versus Glacier that the Nexus Kate Nexus provides, but you get a pseudo benefit because you're getting the link to help against CTM and sync, but you're also getting 2 recurring credits, which can help against a big piece of ice as well.
That deck does really nice against some of the Glacier builds because it's running the GS Cloud Breakers. So you're really breaking some of that heavy ice for monster cheap.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. I think that it's one of the better Shaper decks that Aaron... I mean, Jinro is one of the better Shaper decks I think I've seen in the current meta, and it makes me happy that Aaron, it's something that is more of like a personal thing that Aaron has tinkered with, because that's his thing. He always picks a deck that he knows really well, that he's created, that he likes to pilot, and that deck also happens to be very good, I think. I don't think I would. I think most of the time I would play it over Nexus Kate. But that's me. Again, I don't know what everyone else would rather do.
Do you have any follow-ups there, Captain?
Not that I can think of. I was just trying because, like, you guys touched on when I was watching the main decks here, like, especially for people who like seemed like maybe were new to coming to the table.
Yeah.
And they weren't experienced with it. And I was like, I feel like you're going to see a lot of, at least where I'm at right now, I'm seeing a ton of Nexus.
Yeah.
And maybe that would have been something to kind of mention for people who hadn't seen that. Like, we get the Nexus interaction, of course, but, like, how that whole deck likes to, like, lock you down with Claude if you're doing the fast advance route and, like, trying to pressure out all the servers.
Right. Yeah, it's 100% against fast advance decks. It's like it's like a hard meta cut. I think where it will start to get weird is when you see this happened actually funny enough at King of Servers. I played against a Nexus K deck that unfortunately had a slow start, and I was playing Palena Glacier, and it was so old school and so classic. And I was able to rush. I basically got an Eli and an Itchy down and just rushed behind those two ice and a Caprice. I almost left HQ and R&D almost wide open for the most part, just to make sure that I could just throw the agenda down and say, look, you're going to have to spend 2 clicks or 4 credits and 2 clicks, and then we're going to play a game. And when you lose clicks, you lose the money you would gain from Opus. So this is almost becoming a win-win scenario. I can feed you an agenda if it means you're slowed down enough, and I can just redo the same do it again.
Slam and go.
Yep. Slam it and jam it, buddy. That's what you got to do.
Hey, man, thanks for being our first call-in ever on Bad Publicity.
That's right.
Yeah.
You did it.
You made it.
Achievement unlocked. Yeah.
We'll hope to do this again. Thanks, buddy.
No problem.
Thanks, Johnny. That's cool, man. Johnny's a cool guy. I like Johnny.
All right, let me see. Next up, boom, boom.
Oh, look at this. Look at this.
Who's this?
Oh, hello.
Oh, hey.
What's up? Suddenly, all my mic just my headphones screwed up, but I can still hear you. What's up, everybody?
What's up, Ben?
Hey.
Ben.
Well, thanks for having me on.
This doesn't happen very often, but it's the second time you've been on a stream this week.
Yeah, that's true.
You were.
I streamed yesterday at Raven's Nest. We had a game night kit there. It was actually on stream, which almost never happens.
Yeah, I
have to inflict that on myself every so often since I do it to others.
I clicked it on. And I was like, oh man, he's on his own stream. I was like, this is never happening.
Yeah.
I know,
Fun fact: he never loses when he's on stream. It's funny.
Oh, that's not true at all.
That's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By an RP.
Yeah.
I got wrecked specifically, I got wrecked by scarcity of resources, and both of my employee strikes being on the bottom 5 cards on my deck. That was cool.
No, that's horrible.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, Corey enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
But so what I wanted to call in and say is just talking about in terms of the state of the meta. Probably the most public thing that we've seen about the state of the meta right now would be the Worlds results, and everyone's talking about how the top 19 decks are all yellow and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But for people who haven't been to Worlds, and the 3 of you could probably attest to this, I just want to add kind of an asterisk by those results. And not to say that they're not legitimate. They are. I think that those decks are very much some of the best decks right now. But Worlds is what they call an inbred meta. And so you have a lot of people who are all kind of figuring out what each other are playing and trying to kind of come together to find the best things. And like you come in and say, okay, I'm going to play this deck over here. And then you walk past, like the UK guys and hear that they're playing such and such. You're like, oh no, I got to change my deck. And it's this really weird maelstrom of like 2 days before Worlds where everything is changing really, really fast. All this is to say is that the World's meta isn't necessarily reflective, in my opinion, of your local meta.
The world's meta is not necessarily reflecting the world.
No, of
no, I know, but that's basically it.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So what I guess what I'm saying is that I know for me, I mean, I see people playing CTM or Wizard or whatever, and like those are quote the best decks. But something to keep in mind also with these decks being published is now everybody knows what these decks are, and so they can they can be teched against, I think, a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody knew about the Hate Bear deck before Worlds, and now everyone knows about it. And so you can go look at the list online and see, oh, it has no levy. I can exploit that. It only has one paperclip. Maybe I can arc lock down it or something like that. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people, even top players, are moving on from those decks a little bit. I've been hearing people playing Geist, people playing Potential Unleashed, people playing Andy DLR, Andy Nexus, Sunny DLR. I don't know if you ever watch Kiv's YouTube channel. He's playing all sorts of crazy stuff that's really cool.
Yeah, Kiv. Yeah.
But I suppose what I'm trying to say, calling in, is in case there were people who are listening. I know you're concerned about that. People who are listening saying that it's doom and gloom. I disagree. I mean, yes, there are some very clearly good decks, but I think there's still a lot of room for innovation, a lot of room for new things to crop up. And there are people, even now, who are very good at the game who are continuing to explore and find really cool new stuff.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, especially seeing some of the early Store Champ results. Because, again, it's not all been Anarch, NBN. Like,
right, and
there's been some really creative decks that have popped up and come out of those events.
You really got to give a standing ovation to the Sunny build. Like,
Yeah.
that was great. That was great.
And that was one of the things I'm trying to say is when I say your meta might be different, I'm talking about to the individual listener out there who might be listening to this podcast or watching right now. Maybe you live in Dallas, or you live in Toronto, or you live in somewhere else, and your meta may not have all those tier 1 decks.
Right.
Yeah.
But
play because you love
won a
the
store
game.
championship, right? I mean, anything can win a store championship, and so
Yeah.
I would say go for it.
And just to kind of confirm a little bit on your inbred meta statement, I wasn't able to attend Worlds this year, but it was exactly the same last year with DLR Val.
Right.
Like, that's the exact same thing. As once people realized that deck was going to pop up, every different click was like, well, what do you do versus DLR Val? Oh, this is my answer, DLR Val. Turns out none of those answers actually worked. But that was like a consensus going around trying to figure out how to stop it. So yeah, that's an accurate portrayal of how the world's meta works.
Yeah.
Cool.
I also wanted to chime in as well, if that's okay.
Yep.
No, like
You're allowed to.
no, something that I always think about when I look at like the way the meta works in Netrunner or in any card game in general. It always tends to be that like people gravitate around like the best decks. Like the internet has made it a lot easier to, especially
Share information.
locations like share information obviously, but like you know what I mean, like to get an aggregate, if you will, of all the good things. Take all the good things that are winning, and we can view them all right now. Like, you can go to Netrunner DB right now, hit tournaments, and you'll see every deck that's placed top, like, 4 in every tournament over the past year. And so, and with that information, and I'm going to use this as an example, shout out to Ben, because I'm hoping you're doing this again this year for Store Champs. Ben last year,
Probably not.
Listen,
all
don't
of
put
the
them.
data.
The man has so much on his plate,
There are a
Hollis.
lot more
Don't-
store
I know.
champs than there are regionals.
Don't
turns out.
bring
Yeah.
him on live
Anyway.
and then put him on the spot like
But
this.
there are websites like alwaysberunning.net and aku.net where you can post results, and I would encourage any TOs to post your results with those meta things, so I don't have to do it. Anyway, go ahead.
well, yeah, but like basically we can look at all the data. Like we can look at so much data. Funny enough, I think this happened now, like either 2015 or 2014. There was so much data that people like saved. We're able to view how many copies of each card were placed in every deck that made first place, or the top 4. If I don't know if anyone remembers this from Reddit. Someone compiled a list of how many times a card showed up in all the competitive decks that it won regionals. And so the entire meta had basically this sort of unique snapshot of saying, hey, these are common cards that are in good decks. It doesn't mean that these cards always need to be played, but when you build your deck, here's some things to consider. These cards are used probably because they're good, or the perception of it is that the cards are good. And so with all this information available to us, it means that we're able to it means that everyone can quickly choose something they want to play, choose something really, really good, and that's how the meta gets formed. We know what to meta when we see the tournament results because everyone's going to play those things. For Sword Champs especially, probably more than regionals, more than nationals, more than worlds, when you literally can just play anything because there's like you live in a meta with 5 Sword Champs total for this year or for the season, you're going to see some insane stuff sometimes. That's when you're going to see the potential Unleashed deck that no one knows how to play against, that's demolishing everybody. Or the person playing Titan Transnational that's demolishing people. And those sort of weird off-meta decks do really well, or can do really well in a predictable meta.
Yeah, absolutely. To rephrase that, I would say that Store Championships are the best time for a rogue deck to win. It's the best time, your best chance for your pet weirdo deck to actually win something. Prove the world that you're the man.
Yep. And especially as we get closer to Christmas and a lot of people can't make it out to these tournaments.
That's me.
That's
me. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for calling in, Hollis. All right. So,
all right.
Anyway, yeah. Thanks for having me on.
No problems.
Thanks for calling, man.
Appreciate it. Before he leaves, Ben, you want to just give a rundown on where people can find you? I think the best thing people can do is jump on, if you're a Twitter follower, is get Peach Hack on Twitter for those spontaneous times when you're just like, hey, I'm streaming this game kit tonight, and then that way people can find out.
I mean, on Twitter, my personal Twitter is just DodgePong, and then obviously I run Peach Hack, the YouTube channel and Twitch channel. So twitch.tv/DodgePong, or on Twitter you can go to Peach Hack on Twitter.
Yeah, and it's not like everybody probably doesn't know that already.
Hey,
it's out there, but
I'm not one to pass up an opportunity to share it with anyone who might not.
And we are not one to make sure that credit is given where credit is due, man. Keep doing what you do because it is phenomenal. And don't let Hollis bully you into any additional workload.
Whoa! It was good data, buddy. It was good data. Great data.
Cool. Well, have a good rest of the show, guys. I'll watch the rest of it online.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Take care, Ben.
He's gonna do it. He's gonna do the work. I'm gonna make him do it. No. I have a question in chat that I want to ask that was from Ron Harris.
Yeah.
We may have already answered it, but he said, do you think because of the unstable nature of Glacier right now, it forces people to play yellow/CTM style decks?
I don't know about that.
And I think he's referring to Rumor Mill affecting...
yeah. That's true. Rumor Mill is a bit of a problem because it hits Glacier super hard. I mean, I know I had a really fun Palena build that I played at Gen Con that I loved, and it was just before Rumor Mill was legal. Then Rumor Mill came out. I tried to play it. Did not happen. It just crushed everything about that deck. And I think that's it, though. You get that adapt, something comes out, makes it change your play style and try other things. And I think some of those decks, they're the easier answers to be able to deal with those style cards. And so that's why I think a lot of people will gravitate and jump on it.
Cool.
Guys, I think...
Wow. I was really quiet. Those are pause.
Well,
thanks.
I agree with you. I think that if there's more answers that help Glacier, then I think we'll see a resurgence of Glacier coming back. I think even just the fear of Rumor Mill, because it does hinder Glacier decks with protection upgrades so well. It just that fear makes you not want to play it because you're rolling the dice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if they're playing one Rumor Mill, if you're not playing a current, or at the very least have it in hand to throw down at the time they play it, they can pretty much win the game from that alone.
Yeah, and if your plan is to try to score out of a server that you build up with upgrades, Rumor Mill shuts down, and you don't have a current to clear Rumor Mill, the Rumor Mill's played, you now no longer have a way to score in certain decks, and then you're just like, I can now never turn this Rumor Mill off. Yeah. And so I am effed.
Yep.
So, yeah, Rumor Mill's a good card.
Yeah.
I did have...
Pro tip.
my last. Sorry, I think this is the last one. I really last
man.
one.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
So-
hey, I forgive you, man. You're good.
Someone
do
asked
this.
this, and I asked the question, but I didn't answer it. They talked about Encore, and they asked, "What do we think about Encore?" More specifically, the question was,
Do we think it'll
I
see
don't know.
play? Do we think
Do I
it'll
think it'll-
change?
Do you want
yeah,
more?
do we think it'll
I mean,
make
I
an
guess-
impact?
There we go. So this is interesting, right? Because in Shaper, like I believe it could, because Shapers now have a number of ways to increase their click count or to be able to gain runs at the beginning of the turn. That they could get in situations where they can play this, and then if you look in stealth, well, I'm not so sure if stealth is the right answer unless you can fire it to where you can trigger multiple runs because you have a finite number of credits each turn. But I think Shapers have tools to take advantage of this card. I do think Encore is appropriately influence costed, which is something we mentioned earlier, so you're not likely to see it outside of Shaper. And it's a cool card. So I don't want to definitely say, like, yeah, it absolutely will make an impact, but I think the tools are there for it to be a big deal card, to be something to consider. How it's used and what benefit you're using off of that, we'll see.
Yeah, Jameson, do you have an opinion on this?
You go
Oh,
first.
yeah. He's right. Those diaper builds. Yeah, you can just get keyholed a crap ton.
Oh wow, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was going to say. You can probably see it in an updated diaper style.
Yeah.
But like Corey said, I think that the card is very playable in green with green set of tools. There's no reason why it can't. Just having it in there as a one of, try and like maybe that game finisher thing, or like it's not costing green anything other than a card slot. There's no reason to not have it there as a one of at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I dig it. Also, I think that it being, I think that you can find enough avenues to at least attack HQ and R&D in the same turn, and when you're at that point, I think hitting archives for gaining an entire brand new 4 clicks, or in some cases 5, right? Because of Beth, I think that can make the card worth it. Now,
Yeah,
people
geez, I completely forgot the Beth synergy on top of that too. So between like Hyperdriver, the 6 of, and then it's good.
Yeah,
It's
it's
there.
pretty neat, right? Pretty neat.
Yeah.
You get all-nighters. Anything else, Hollis, on the thing?
I saw no other questions.
All right, guys. Well, that's very awesome if you made it all this way in this monster venting episode. If you liked the call-in aspect, please throw down some comments below this video. Let us know. Tweet over to us. Comment on the Facebook what you'd like to see. How can we get this interaction thing going a little more? Do you think we should just do drop-ins throughout the show? Should we break up our segments? Should we have talked about the world's top cut, taken a couple calls, gone on to the other stuff, taken calls on that? Or do we just save them to the end like this so people that just want to hear and tune into the show don't get the call interruptions and the flow's not broken up like that? I'm Jameson. We have... That's where you say your name.
Corey. What's up? What's up?
And Hollis, what's up?
Hey.
This is Bad Publicity. Thanks very much for joining us, guys. We'll catch you next week.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a good night.